When the ambulance arrived that night, the medics had no idea what they would find. A young woman lay by the roadside, barely breathing, her body mutilated and broken. Every heartbeat was a struggle, every breath a fight for survival. Weeks later, this same woman, model Maria Kowalczyk, would reveal a horrifying secret, a hidden world of exclusive Arab parties where cruelty, fear, and violence ruled. At first, no one believed her. Some dismissed it as exaggeration, others shook their heads in disbelief. But the bruises, the broken bones, the evidence of prolonged abuse told a story more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The question was no longer if these events existed, it was how far this network went, and how many more girls were trapped in its nightmarish grip. Maria grew up in a small, quiet town, where life was simple, but her dreams were anything but. From a young age, she was captivated by the world of fashion and glamour. She spent hours flipping through glossy magazines, mesmerized by the tall, elegant models gracing every page, their lives appearing perfect and untouchable. Local beauty contests only fueled her imagination, offering glimpses of what might be possible if she had the courage and persistence to chase her dreams. By the time she turned 20, Maria realized that to truly pursue modeling, she would have to leave the familiarity of her hometown behind. With little more than ambition and a modest room rented in the city, she began attending countless castings, often facing rejection and disappointment. Every small ad shoot, every fleeting runway appearance, was a stepping stone, but success was slow, sporadic, and far from glamorous. Despite the challenges, Maria remained determined. She watched other models' careers with a mixture of awe and envy, longing for the international shoots, fashion shows, and social media recognition that seemed just out of reach. Financial instability added to the pressure. Pay was low, contracts rare, and each day brought uncertainty about how she would manage rent or survive in the competitive world of modeling. Yet, Maria never let frustration cloud her focus. Every photo, every portfolio update, every small success fueled her hope. She imagined a future where her face would grace billboards, her name whispered in fashion circles, and her talent finally recognized. Little did she know, the path to that dream would soon take a dark and dangerous turn, one that would test her courage, resilience, and very will to survive. Then came the whisper stories about exclusive VIP Arab parties where a few days abroad could earn a girl thousands of dollars. The promises sounded almost too good to be true. Elegant hotels, luxurious surroundings, no obligations beyond showing up, looking beautiful, and following a dress code. In the dressing rooms, some models spoke of it casually, almost laughing as they described weekends filled with champagne, fine dining, and endless attention. No details, just enjoy yourself, they said. The idea seemed harmless at first, almost like a harmless fantasy, but the seed had been planted in Maria's mind. The temptation grew stronger as the pressures of her life mounted. Modeling paid little, contracts were rare, and her dreams of international fame seemed just out of reach. Then one day, she received a call from a stranger claiming to be the coordinator of a VIP event in Dubai. The offer was concrete, $5,000 for 2 days, all expenses paid, and no obligations other than appearances. To convince her, they showed photos of models returning from previous events, glowing in luxury and excitement. Maria's heart raced. Could this be the breakthrough she had been waiting for? The money, the glamour, the possibility of stepping into a world she had only admired from afar. It was irresistible. With a mixture of excitement and naivety, she said yes, never imagining that this decision would mark the beginning of a nightmare that would change her life forever. Maria arrived in Dubai filled with anticipation, the city's skyline sparkling like a promise of opportunity. At the airport, she was met by a man named Rashid, who introduced himself as her manager. Dressed in a crisp European suit and exuding confidence, he led her to an expensive SUV. At first glance, everything seemed perfect: luxury, professionalism, and friendliness. He reassured her that all arrangements had been made, from the hotel to the villa, and that she would be well taken care of. Maria felt a mix of relief and excitement. Perhaps this was the breakthrough she had dreamed about for years. Her hotel room was spacious, clean, and comfortable, and for a moment, it seemed that the stories she had heard were real, harmless glimpses into a glamorous life. Rashid told her to rest and prepare for the party the next evening. But then came the first sign that things were not as they seemed. Rashid asked for her phone, citing a privacy policy to protect the identity of the VIP guests. Maria hesitated, a small knot of doubt forming in her stomach. Yet she remembered the whispers from other models, the stories of friends who had done the same, and reluctantly handed it over. It felt like a small sacrifice for a chance at luxury, adventure, and recognition. That evening, she was taken to a sprawling villa, grander than anything she had imagined. The gates opened to a world of lights, fountains, and marble courtyards. Girls in lavish dresses moved gracefully among the rooms, some chatting softly, others laughing and broadcasting the event on social media. Guards patrolled the perimeter, silent but watchful. Wealthy men in traditional Arab attire mingled, exuding power, influence, and a strange, intimidating presence. For the first few hours, the atmosphere seemed almost normal. Champagne flowed, music played, introductions were made. But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that every glance, every subtle gesture, was a test of obedience. Something dark lurked beneath the glittering surface, and the glamorous promise of a weekend in Dubai began to feel like the edge of a trap. As the evening wore on, Maria began to notice the first real signs that something was very wrong. At first, it had seemed like a glamorous party, champagne flowing, music playing, polite conversations, but now, the glitz felt heavy, almost suffocating. Several men in traditional Arab attire were watching her, lingering near her in ways that made her skin crawl. Their gazes were not friendly or admiring, they were assessing, evaluating her reactions, measuring her obedience. A whisper from another model made her heart skip a beat. "Don't look them in the eye too boldly. They don't like that." Maria froze, unsure how to respond, and nodded, trying to act casual, but the warning echoed ominously in her mind. As midnight approached, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Guests began leaving, and some of the girls disappeared into private rooms. Maria was suddenly left alone with three men in white robes, introduced as the chicks of the event. At first, they were polite, asking her to sit closer, offering drinks. But soon, their words and actions betrayed a darker intent. One man spoke of how he adored Russian women, praising their submissive nature and ability to fulfill any desire. Maria instinctively took a step back, trying to maintain distance, but he grabbed her roughly, pulling her toward him. At first, she resisted politely, hoping to escape without confrontation, but a guard standing nearby gave her a warning look, a silent signal that defiance would not be tolerated. In that moment, Maria realized she was alone against a world where no conventional rules applied. The party's facade of luxury and charm had dissolved, revealing a system of control and intimidation. She sensed that any attempt to resist would lead to far worse consequences, yet the instinct to survive kept her alert. The other girls in the room were silent, their faces pale with fear, showing her that she was not the only one trapped. This was no longer a party, it was a test of obedience, a trap disguised as glamour. The night had taken a terrifying turn, and Maria's nightmare was only just beginning. The hours that followed were a descent into pure terror for Maria. What had started as subtle intimidation soon escalated into outright physical abuse. One of the men grabbed her roughly in front of another model, asserting dominance, reminding her in the most brutal way that resistance was impossible. When she tried to pull away, a sharp blow to her face left her reeling. The guard standing nearby did nothing, a silent enforcer of the cruel rules. The other model could only watch in frozen fear, whispering, "Just do what he wants, or it will be worse." In that moment, Maria understood the horrifying reality. She was utterly alone. There were no laws here, no help, no one to turn to. The abuse intensified. Every attempt to move, to resist, was punished. Each command they gave carried the threat of pain, and every minor action was scrutinized with the potential for further violence. Maria's instinct for survival battled with fear, but she knew that hesitation could cost her dearly. At one point, she tried to escape down a corridor, desperately hoping to find a door or a way out, only to hear faint sobs from behind another door, a fellow model trapped in the same nightmare. She wanted to help, but she was helpless, realizing that any action outside the rules of this twisted environment could trigger a worse fate. Soon, the guards cornered her, throwing her to the floor and kicking her while mocking her pain. "You still have time to realize where you belong," one sneered, a chilling reminder that she was entirely at their mercy. That night, Maria and two other models were locked in a small, windowless room resembling a storage closet. The air was heavy with fear and despair. One girl wept uncontrollably, murmuring, "We thought it was just a party. We're going to die." The other held herself silently, clutching her torn dress like a lifeline. By morning, A guard arrived with an ultimatum: comply fully with the villa's rules and continue working, or face consequences that were never explicitly stated, but everyone understood the threat. Whispers of girls who resisted and vanished without a trace circulated through the villa. For Maria, it became clear: survival depended entirely on submission. This was not a world of glamour or fun, it was a machine of fear, control, and unrelenting cruelty, where the slightest defiance could have deadly consequences. As the villa descended into night, the true horror behind its walls became impossible to ignore. Maria began to see the patterns, the carefully orchestrated entertainment for the wealthy guests that crossed the line from luxury into sadism. Some girls were forced into acts designed to humiliate them, performing tasks that provoked fear and panic. The guests watched with cruel amusement, taking pleasure in the terror they could provoke, their wealth granting them impunity. Rumors swirled among the girls that, in some rooms, the acts went further: ritualistic cruelty, animals, and blood, but Maria could only piece together fragments from the shocked expressions and trembling bodies she passed in the hallways. One girl could barely walk, her skin showing raw abrasions, and another sat silently, staring blankly ahead, clearly broken. On her second night, Maria was summoned to a room with several men she had never seen before. One of them roughly shoved her to her knees, scolding her for disobedience, his eyes gleaming with manic cruelty. She felt a hand grip her shoulder, forcing her into positions that made her vulnerable, while the men laughed and some recorded the scene. Pain and humiliation merged into a nightmare she couldn't escape. The guards ensured no help could come. Any act of resistance was met with immediate and brutal punishment. Maria realized that escape wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible. Even when she briefly twitched, attempting to provoke the distraction, the retaliation was swift and violent, leaving her battered and terrified. The villa was a carefully maintained ecosystem of fear. Every night, girls were tested, manipulated, and sometimes broken. Some returned from rooms in a state of shock, barely able to stand, while others disappeared entirely, swallowed by the villa's machinery of terror. Maria's awareness of this reality sharpened with every passing hour. She understood that the wealth and influence of the guests, the strict control by the guards, and the isolation from the outside world created a perfect system for cruelty. The glamour she had chased for years had been a mirage, hiding a deadly reality where survival depended on submission, and every moment carried the potential for violence. Night after night, the girls were reminded no one was coming to save them. After 2 nights trapped in the villa, Maria knew she could not endure the abuse any longer. Her body ached from beatings, her spirit teetered on the edge of despair, yet the instinct to survive burned fiercely. She began watching the guards, noting their patterns, looking for the slightest gap in their vigilance. Every corridor, every door, every shadow became a potential path to freedom. The other girls whispered warnings, their fear palpable, but Maria's resolve hardened. If she waited, she could be broken completely, or worse, disappear like the rumors suggested. She needed to act, and she needed to act soon. The opportunity came unexpectedly late one night. A guard momentarily left his post, distracted by some trivial task, and Maria seized the chance. Heart pounding, she slipped into the corridor, moving as quietly as possible, every nerve alert to the possibility of being caught. The echo of her footsteps seemed deafening in the silent villa. Behind one closed door, she heard the quiet sobs of another girl, a stark reminder of the danger lurking at every turn. Fear surged, but the thought of freedom, of escaping the nightmare she had been thrown into, propelled her forward. She almost made it to the exit, to a world she could barely imagine, when a guard appeared, cornering her in the hallway. The attack was sudden and brutal. She was thrown to the ground, kicked, and struck repeatedly while the guard mocked her, taunting, "You still have time to realize where you belong." Maria's pain was searing, yet she refused to give up completely. Each blow steeled her determination, forcing her to find a final reserve of strength. In the chaos, she saw a group of passers-by outside through a partially open gate. Their arrival was accidental, a fleeting chance, but it was enough. She screamed, struggled, and crawled toward them as best she could, until they called an ambulance. She was found bleeding, broken, without documents or a phone, a living testament to the horrors inside the villa. Her escape had been miraculous, but it marked only the beginning of the long road toward recovery and the fight to reveal the truth about the cruel, hidden world she had survived. After the ambulance rushed her to the hospital, Maria's fight for survival entered a new stage. She was battered, broken, and disoriented, her body bearing the clear marks of prolonged abuse. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her, repairing broken bones, treating deep bruises, and keeping her alive through the first critical days. Her consciousness flickered in and out, haunted by the events she had endured. At times, she cried out in delirium, reliving the terror of the villa. The medical team, slowly piecing together her injuries, could only imagine the extent of what she had suffered. Every scar, every fracture, every trembling limb told a story of unimaginable cruelty. Once she regained some strength, Maria was faced with another challenge: speaking out. The villa's network was powerful, secretive, and well-connected, and fear still gripped her. Threats had already reached her: strange calls, subtle warnings, and attempts to discredit her story on social media. Many tried to convince her to remain silent, warning that exposing the truth could bring retaliation. But Maria's resolve was unwavering. With the support of human rights activists and journalists willing to listen, she began giving detailed interviews, recounting each step of her ordeal, naming intermediaries, describing the villas, and sharing the horrors she had witnessed. Her voice, once trembling with fear, gradually became a weapon against the cruel system that had sought to destroy her. Maria's public exposure of the events sent shockwaves through the modeling world and beyond. People could no longer dismiss her story as exaggeration. Her courage inspired others who had suffered in silence to come forward, and investigators began piecing together a pattern of exploitation and abuse. Yet, despite the progress, Maria knew the fight was far from over. She faced the challenge of rebuilding her life, undergoing long-term therapy, and navigating the public attention that had suddenly turned her into a symbol of resilience. But even in the midst of fear, trauma, and uncertainty, she remained determined to warn others, to reveal the dark underbelly of glamour, and to ensure that her survival was not in vain. Her story had moved from the shadows into the light, and she was ready to use her voice to fight back. As Maria reflects on her journey, the enormity of what she endured becomes clear. What began as a dream of glamour and luxury had turned into a nightmare of control, abuse, and terror, but through sheer courage, she survived. Her scars, both physical and emotional, serve as a reminder of the dangers hidden behind promises of quick success and wealth. Yet Maria's story is not just about suffering, it's a story of resilience, bravery, and the refusal to remain silent. By speaking out, she has shone a light on a dark and secretive world, warning others of the very real dangers that lurk behind closed doors. Maria also urges viewers to pay attention, to be cautious, and to protect those around them. This story is a stark reminder that not every opportunity is what it seems, and sometimes, beauty and wealth can mask cruelty and exploitation. By sharing her experience, she hopes to prevent others from falling into similar traps, to inspire courage in victims who may still be silent, and to encourage society to take action against such abuses. Her determination to speak, even in the face of threats, is a call for awareness, vigilance, and empathy. So, as we end this story, remember Maria's journey not just as a tale of horror, but as a warning and a lesson. If her story resonates, share it, talk about it, and help others understand the risks hidden in seemingly glamorous promises. Subscribe to the channel to uncover more stories from the shadows, comment to raise awareness, and never forget, sometimes the most beautiful opportunities hide the cruelest realities. Maria survived, and through her voice, she gives others a chance to survive too.